highly sensitive to change. It would be remiss of any film featuring Arabia's coral seas to not mention Oman. Although high coverage of reef corals are found in Oman, reef development is generally limited, and the number of coral types present is low, with possibly only about 100 reef-forming species inhabiting Omani waters. We travel to a group of coral islands in the Gulf of Oman called the Damaniyat Islands, Oman's first marine nature reserve, and perhaps Arabia's finest coral habitat this side of the Red Sea. The coastline of Oman is geologically young. The physical environment of the Arabian Sea, and to a less extent the Gulf of Oman, is highly variable and unstable, especially with respect to temperature. Because of the annual summer southeast monsoon and the resulting upwelling of cold, deep water, the temperatures of some coral habitats fall to stressful levels, which may act to restrict the survival of many species and inhibit the growth rates of those species which do survive. The exception to this are the well-developed reef systems found in the Damaniyat Islands. Here the reefs teem with a staggering abundance of life. By contrast to the Red Sea, these reefs are enshrouded in fish due to being in a particularly nutrient-rich part of the Indian Ocean. A leopard shark is woken from his daytime slumber. Although armed with several rows of teeth, this is generally a bottom feeder. In the shelter of the leeward side, hard corals carpet the seafloor. Acropora tabletop corals and Parietes boulder corals dominate. These corals are locked in a struggle for space. So many species and communities vying for suitable substrate upon which to build. Another extremely important and successful coral area is found on the Omani side of the Straits of Hormuz, in the waters of the Musandam Peninsula. Although we have mentioned the Musandam before, the unique nature of this area's coral warrants attention. We joined Al Masa divers aboard their liveaboard diving dhow to see the remotest parts of the Musandam in all its natural splendor. Although visibility is nowhere near as clear as the Red Sea, the reason for this is the absolute richness of the water. Here, the rich nutrients that are being carried through the narrow straits into the Arabian Gulf by strong currents pass through a perfect habitat for coral species. Corals are doing very well here, perhaps because they have grown accustomed to significant temperature shifts, escaping the brunt of the impact caused by El Niño back in 1996 and 1998. Virtually every exposed dive site is characterized by currents, some moving horizontally, whilst others even move vertically. This deep-water purple gorgonian is still unnamed, and it is believed the chance of other endemics evolving from here is high. This juvenile black coral is certainly misleading, as it remains yellow for most of its life. Sea sponges thrive here in a multitude of colors, and the general dynamics of the reef is vibrant and healthy. The fish abundance is simply staggering. After the relative absence of big schooling pelagic fish in the Red Sea, here we are caught in a maelstrom of marine life, as swirling shoals ride the currents. Clouds of pennant fish raid the egg nests of sergeant majors. Despite their valiant attempts to protect their eggs, the marauding pennant fish are relentless, and it's hard to imagine that any eggs will remain. Squid also use the shelter of the reef to mate and lay their eggs. This is the feeding grounds of the largest fish in the sea. The gentle whale shark simply stands its ground in the currents and sifts the plankton as they drift into its open mouth. Virtually all records of whale sharks seen here are of juveniles, possibly indicating that this is either part of a nursery that extends from the Arabian Gulf, or that this is a holding area where young whale sharks feed and grow until ready to face the open ocean beyond the straits. Above the water's surface, as the day comes to an end, these magnificent steep-sided fjords with thousands of sheltered bays create ideal sanctuary for corals to grow. The very remoteness leads us to consider that this may be one of the region's last remaining marine wildernesses. As elsewhere in the world, changes in the environment are causing the loss of countless species. It was out of concerns about special places such as these that gave rise to Arabia's cycle of life. Over the course of the last 2 years, we have been inspired by the efforts of many of the region's conservation authorities, who, despite dealing with enormous pressures from the rapid development that surrounds us, are trying to keep wildlife conservation and protection in the mix. As conservation authorities are becoming more active in dealing with environmental awareness, it is important to realize that it is never too late to make a difference. Regional efforts to set aside certain areas for conservation purposes may be given an added momentum through the growth of interest in ecotourism, or for that matter, general tourism. To better protect an environment, it is essential to understand the commercial values inherent within that environment. But in the words of one conservationist interviewed within our series, extinction is forever, but so too is maintenance and monitoring. There is still a relatively diverse and unique range of species and ecosystems that need protecting. Many of this region's concerned countries also have the financial and political means to consolidate firm conservation strategies. But the true goal must lie in education. We need to enable our children to fully understand the values of the natural world. Through knowledge, empower them to carry on much needed conservation work throughout the region. Historically, wildlife and A Way with the Land have deep-rooted foundations in a culture that has truly lived off the land until recent times. In this first series of Arabia's Cycle of Life, we have simply brushed the surface. If anything, we wanted to show the richness and diversity of what is out there. We wanted to illustrate that Arabia's natural world is unique, special, and well worth saving for future generations.